Thank you.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Good morning. Am I on? Am I on now? Am I on? I didn't actually mean that. I kind of meant, can you hear me? I think I know I'm on. And Donnie and Bodie and Amanda. Ooh, so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. So, good morning, everyone. I am not Reverend Karyl Huntley. I'm Reverend Mary Shelton. I'm filling in for your minister, Reverend Karyl, today because she is at Salt Lake City at our annual Centers for Spiritual Living convention. And so, because she's on the Ministers' Council, she left a little bit early. She's got lots of things to do, and she'll be back next week with all kinds of inspiration. But in the meantime, if you are here for the very first time, we have a gift for you. We will not ask you to tap dance or identify, or tell us how you got here or try and convince you of anything. So if you would raise your hand, we're just going to give you a gift. That's what we'd love to do for you this morning. Yes, thank you very much. We have two right here, and they're going to come and bring you a packet right here. Thank you. Welcome. We're so glad that you're here this morning. We invite you to look through all of that. We hope that you will find Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living to be a comfortable place for you to make your spiritual home. We're really glad you're here with us this morning. So for you and for all of us as a reminder, our vision here at Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living is awakening personal transformation. And the way that we do that is our mission by teaching tools for positive change. We're a part of the larger Centers for Spiritual Living organization. And so our overall theme for this year, for the whole organization, is, God bless you, that too, a world that works for everyone. For everyone, imagine that. And so our theme here at Golden Gate for this month and all over for all of our centers is awakening to our spiritual magnificence. And you got a taste of that this morning with Andoni's opening song. So we're going to be talking this morning about the idea that all that I am and all that I do is God. All I am and all I do is God. Now, that's two beings recognizing God. That's the essence of Namaste. Two beings recognizing the divine within each other. Different species, but seeing the same truth. So, where am I? As I transition into slides, I know what I wanted to share with you. So the telephone rings in a house in a rather quiet neighborhood, and a young boy answers the phone, almost in a whisper. Hello? The caller says, hello, who am I speaking with? Tommy. May I speak with your mother? She's busy. Is your father there? Yes. May I speak with him? No, he's really busy. Well, are there any other adults there? Yes, a bunch of firemen. Oh my, is anybody else there? I really need to talk to an adult there. Well, the policeman is here, comes the reply. Good heavens, what are all those people doing at your house? Oh, that's easy, Tommy replies. They're looking for me. And here's the thing, we are always looking for the infinite. We're always thinking we're going to find it somewhere. We're going to get more perfect. We're going to feel more enlightened. We're going to have a breakthrough that allows us to know the real truth of who we are. Meanwhile, while we're looking for all that, while we're doing all those things, the truth of who we are is just sitting there waiting. If we weren't looking so hard, it probably would be obvious to us. Or if we hadn't put so many things in our consciousness over our lifetimes to tell us that we're not enough, we might already know what we knew when we were little tiny people, which was that everything was a miracle and so were we. That everything was awesome and amazing and so were we. But, life teaches us different things as we learn to individualize and differentiate ourselves, and then as adults, we get to re-find that truth. So our founder, Ernest Holmes, when he was 27 years old, began reading the works of Ralph Waldo Emerson. He later said that reading Emerson was like drinking water to him. Now, this isn't Emerson, this is Holmes as a young man. Yes. And one of the things that Emerson wrote about, that Ernest Holmes just drank into his system like nourishment and put right into his philosophy, was the idea that God, the mystery, the creator, whatever you want to call it, is both immanent and transcendent. So immanent is an interesting word, and I'd never heard this version or seen this spelling of it until I encountered Emerson. It's not imminent, meaning just about to happen. It's not eminent, meaning respected. It's immanent, meaning completely and fully present within right here. God here. And transcendent, meaning beyond all imagining, beyond all form, beyond all understanding or figuring out. So fully present in everything, including us, and fully filling everything beyond form and time and space in the non-understandable, non-figure-outableness of the infinite, okay? Those two ideas. So as tiny as you can get, as vast as you can imagine, and more than both, okay? That's God. And the way that Ernest Holmes translated that, the way that he spoke about it for us, was by saying this: we should keep this in mind. The Spirit makes all things out of itself. So, as Thomas Troward said, if you have Spirit and you add nothing, what you have is still Spirit. So we are the manifestation of the One. Holmes went on to say, the first quote comes from Creative Mind, this one comes from the Science of Mind. God is universal intelligence, or spirit. The only way intelligence can move is by an interior movement. God must move within God if God is all. So far, so good, yes? He goes on to say, it moves within and upon itself. God moves upon God. This is the starting point of creation. Every time one conceives an idea, it is God expressing itself. It is eternally knowing and eternally known through everyone. It is God's nature to know, and there is an emotional craving or desire for expression inherent in the universe. So our desire to express ourselves as individuals, our uniqueness, our differentness, sometimes our feeling that we don't belong with some group or the other, is part of that experience of our individualization of the One, our uniqueness as the One. And yet, we can't really be separate from it either, or from each other. We only think we can. Does this make sense so far? So this One is manifesting itself as us and as the all. So as the all, we have this vast beyond that Ernest Holmes says the whole of God is present at any and every point within God. Oops. There we go. So we have the transcendent God, the mighty, the infinite, the inscrutable, the limitless, the mysterious. This One is the one that is all the omnis, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. So this One is present everywhere. This One is boundlessly powerful. This One is all-knowing, knowing all possibilities that could ever be or ever have been. This One Ernest Holmes says, our belief sets the limit to our demonstration of a principle, this presence and power, which of itself is without limit. It is ready to fulfill everything because it is infinite. I used to think that the presence of God was our individualized experience of the one, and the power or the principle was, the vast unlimited. But I actually realize now that that's not quite accurate. The truth is that law is also omnipresent. The creative law and the divine presence are inseparable. So the creative law is omnipresent, so I am the creative law, and so are you, in the same way that I am the infinite one, the divine presence. So that means that this inscrutable, limitless, mysterious one that is beyond complete understanding is actually who I am. I, as a human being, can't even understand myself, right? Because if I get the truth of who I am, it's too big for this brain to actually grok, right? So this vast beingness is individualized through me at the level that I allow it, at the level that I invite it, at the level that I trust and believe it. And the more that I let go into that, the more of it will come forward, not through effort, but actually through relaxing and trusting it. Does this make sense so far? So we have the transcendent God, which is beyond, but it's also, that beyond is also right here. Then we have the immanent God, that which is so personal, that which is so present. This one is how we know ourselves. This is personal. This is specific. This is tailored to you, for you, as you, through you. Absolutely tailored and individualized. So this beautiful one that we can't help falling in love with is the reflection of the all, and also the reflection of us. When we look at a little tiny kitten or puppy or baby, or if you're not moved by any of those things, whatever it is that you look, new technology, whatever it is that you look upon with great awe, wonder, heart-opening meltingness, it's that one reflecting back to you and you reflecting it. Just as a sideline, you might laugh at technology, but I can actually ask Siri in my iPhone questions like, where were you born? How old are you? What is the meaning of life? She has very interesting answers for that. So if you have an iPhone, I encourage you to ask Siri those questions and see what she says to you so you can find out for yourself. It's nice to know that Apple has a sense of humor. So in the immanent, in the personal, this is the experience of the divine being perfectly tailored and perfectly tailoring things to us and for us, so that things that don't seem like they could be possible fall into our path in front of us. I've been at a training this weekend where I was assisting, a business training. And on Friday evening, there was some coaching going on, and then there was an exercise. And people paired up in dyads. And after it was all over, when the team was sharing together, the facilitator said, I've been feeling really great about the way the day had gone, the way this exercise had gone. And I was standing there to say goodnight to people as they were going out the door. And a woman came up to me who was really angry. She said she and her partner had not understood the instructions, so they hadn't done the exercise properly, and she really wanted to do the exercise, and she was very disappointed, and how could I let her down like that? And he said, and I was thinking, And then the next person came up and said, I didn't really understand the instructions, and he thought, oh, gee, maybe I really wasn't clear about this. And he was just questioning that and trying to go, okay, it's okay. The next morning, during the breakthrough sharing, a woman stood up and she said, I was in my room this morning, and my roommate had gone, and I decided I was going to do this exercise as I understood it, just with myself in the mirror. And I was standing there in my underwear. And I had my workout clothes on the counter, and I had made my morning drink, kind of tried to make it in this little plastic coffee pot thing with, turmeric and a special chocolate and green things and all this other stuff. And part of the exercise was to let the gremlins come up, where you really criticize yourself and you tell yourself why you can't do everything and all that, so that you can then switch to the other side, so you can actually hear them and be aware of them. So she was kind of doing that, and in the process, she knocked this thing somehow, so that with the chocolate and the turmeric, it went all over the counter, all over her clothes, into her shoes, splattered the wall, went to the floor, with the yellow turmeric that dyes everything, and coffee grounds. And as she was cleaning it up, the gremlins arose, and she was mopping it up, and she was screaming at herself in the mirror, and she was doing this thing. And she came into that morning aglow because of this transformational experience she'd had with this exercise. And so what I recognized was, it was absolutely perfect that she didn't understand the directions. That was Spirit's way of using him to stir her up. And it wasn't necessarily that the instructions weren't clear. It's that Spirit had a higher idea for her. I'm not sure she got that, but that doesn't matter. I got to see it. Maybe it was just for me that I got to see that. But that is the tailoring of something directly to her, because if she had done the exercise correctly the night before, it wouldn't have had nearly that impact on her. Spirit needed to break through to her in a much bigger way. Does this make sense? And so when Spirit does something like that, and it seems inconvenient, and we're upset, and we're angry, and we're mad at ourselves, the possibility exists there that something much more important is trying to happen. Even if it's only just the recognition that, you know what, life happens. It's no big deal. I'm just going to clean it up and go right on. That can be a breakthrough in that moment too, yes? So the tailoring of that moment then might be, for me, if that happened that way and I just went on, it was like, wow, there was a time that I would have complicated all of that by being so mad at myself or the hotel or the coffee maker or whatever, that I wrecked my whole morning, or I decided my whole day was ruined because of that. Have you ever been in that situation? Well, that's it. Now the day is screwed. No. But we get to choose. That's the personalness of it. And that's also the way in which the infinite presence allows things to come into creation, whatever we want to choose at the moment. We can be thrilled and delighted. We can let our day be ruined. We get to play with it any way we want, even when we don't know we're playing. Because ultimately, we are this vast, unlimited mystery. So who are we going to hurt, or how are we going to hurt ourselves by being extremely angry and deciding to wreck our day? There's no harm done except that we get to learn what is the impact of deciding that. Well, what a great thing to learn, that we had the power to derail a whole day by making a decision over one thing that happened in the morning. Even if it takes us a lifetime to figure out that we were the ones that had the power all along. Right? Or even if we don't figure it out until we leave these vehicles and go, wow, you know what, I just noticed something. And that 80 years was really well spent, because that's something I really needed to know. Yeah? So the personalness of it is always working through us. And it means that sometimes things happen that look extremely unlucky, but really, at the ultimate, even if it extinguished your physical body. Now, for those of you who are dealing with somebody in your lives or yourselves who's very ill, I don't mean to minimize the experience of it as a human experience at all. But as the infinite presence that they are, or that you are, if you step out of this vehicle, you just get to go on to another adventure. It's not a bad thing, really. It's just the next unfoldment in the miracle of being. So we can't really hurt ourselves. We get to choose it any way we want to go. and discover what's next, or learn about our power, or discover who we are. And there are no mistakes in it, no matter what it looks like. There are no mistakes in it. So when we know that, we can let it go more quickly, right? It's not a mistake. It's the next piece of something that's tailored for us for an amazing reason. It also means that sometimes we experience incredible miracles, and we think, well, it's a coincidence, or, well, that's not really possible. Michael Talbot told a story in the Holographic Universe. He says, on September 7th, 1871, the New York Herald reported that Nathan Coker, an elderly Negro blacksmith, so it said in the paper, living in Easton, Maryland, could handle red-hot metal without being harmed. In the presence of a committee that included several doctors, he heated an iron shovel until it was incandescent, and then held it against the soles of his feet until it was cool. He also licked the edge of the red-hot shovel and poured melted lead shot into his mouth, allowing it to run over his teeth and gums until it solidified. After each of these feats, the doctors examined him and found no trace of injury. How could that be possible? From our everyday human perspective, it doesn't seem like it could be possible. How many of you have done firewalking? Now, see, I haven't done that. To me, feet and coals is hamburger, or steak, but people have done it. The last woman spirit I was at, we bent rebar and broke boards. I had never done that before. I'd bent spoons. But really, in my mind, the idea that I was going to break a board without having taken karate, that I was going to bend rebar just by walking towards somebody who had the other end of it here, was like puncture wounds, And I did it. How was that possible? Well, we discovered something about the power of group consciousness and belief. The power of it. And once you've done something like that, you can't really go back and say it isn't possible to do that unless you can have amnesia, So there's something more going on with us all the time than what we have done yet, or what we believe is possible, or what we thought we could do. Does this make sense? So wherever we are in our lives right now, there's more. There's more. And we can't do it wrong. Isn't that good to know? We can't do it wrong. So whichever path we take, whichever result we experience, it's all exploration. It's all for our highest benefit as a soul being, as an infinite presence, in the unfoldment and discovery of who we truly are. It's all good. If you knew that you couldn't make a mistake, and that everything that was happening in your life, from getting a ticket to spilling coffee on yourself or orange juice or something right before you stand up to speak in front of a major organization, to having your kid flunk out of school, to breaking your leg, to, you name it, was somehow for your good, and you were actually able to look for the good, I tell you, you will find it. Other people will think you're nuts, but you'll find it. So recently, I called somebody for a little bit of coaching, and she recommended a book to me. And this book is called Time Warriors. And it really isn't about time management. It's about how to defeat procrastination, people-pleasing, self-doubt, overcommitment, broken promises, etc., etc. Are you interested? The chapters are really short. It's really easy to read. I'm going to read one to you called, How Do I Learn to Trust That There Will Be Abundance? Anybody interested in the answer to that? Why do you need to learn to trust? If you want to make scrambled eggs, do you need to first trust that the eggs will scramble? You just make the eggs. You don't walk around trying to trust the scrambling process first. We add way too much to our minds. We burden ourselves in the mind while life waits. You could just wake up and make eggs. Very efficient. You can do the same with the economy. Just make money. Perform the service. Receive the money. And of course, you can budget and save. That's a fun thing. They aren't mutually exclusive. I wouldn't waste any further time trying to trust the abundance of the universe. I would instead test it with action. Test whether it's abundant or not by serving people to such a degree that you finally know. Spoiler alert, it is. Abundance. Everyone I know who really tests it finds it. Much better than trying to believe in it. Your mind and your intentions are there to serve you, not scare you. Learn to use your mind, more powerful than 1,000 computers, plus it has imagination, insight, and intuition in a way that keeps you in action. And as we step into that place where we stay in action, the other thing we begin to do is appreciate ourselves more. As we see how we serve, we begin to know our value. If we're willing to pay attention, our prices may go up at that point because we recognize that we must honor the gift we've been given, that we're sharing. So things may expand for us. So abundance reveals itself to us in a lot of ways. Would you agree? What we want to be able to do is be looking for it, be focusing on it, be finding ways to streamline things that drag our attention away from abundance onto, oh my God, what if? And instead focusing on welcoming, greeting, appreciating, finding, sharing, right? Does that make sense? So we do that with everything it is that we're looking for, that we want more of. The universal power is really who we are. Here's another amazing story. This is from Tony Robbins. Stu Middleman broke a world's record by running 1,000 miles in 11 days. He slept just 3 hours a night and covered 84 miles per day and ended in better condition than when he started. Stu Middleman wasn't lucky. He applied the principles of personal power. Middleman trained for years, but one circumstance was especially powerful. Before undertaking the run, he spent time with a group of South American native Indians who, as part of a celebration, ran 75 miles per day for fun. That experience transformed Middleman's beliefs. He came to see that his goal of breaking the world's record was possible. But he saw it in action first. I read somewhere, and I keep trying to remember this to share it with my grandson. I haven't remembered it while I was with him so far. Somebody who said his grandmother taught him about the power of creative law. She took his two little hands, and then she tapped him on the forehead, and she said, "See it here, then see it here, then see it here." Right? Mary Morrissey says everything is created twice. First, as an idea in consciousness, then in form and experience. So, our imagination is powerful. It's not a waste of time. It's not a thing only women do or only children do. It's an essential gift to all of us because it allows us to begin to bring forward into our awareness what is possible. And part of what moves that imagination and allows us to accept it is our intuition. So the universal power that is in and around and through all of us, the universal power comes through our intuition. It makes itself known to us, the power, the feeling, the awareness, the connection through our intuition. When we trust that guidance, we bring forth more than we can figure out on our own. When we trust it and move with it, we will be making even better choices, even greater abundance, even more results in the people that we work with and help. because the presence and the law is right here. It's the omnis, it's God, it's our identity, it's who we are. It's the awareness, it's the presence. And so the choice in using creative law is not whether or not we will use it. We don't have that option. We're made out of it, we're using it. It's more a matter of whether we choose to use it consciously or to let it work unconsciously. It's more a matter of how we choose to use it, not whether we use it or not. And so we have here identity. It's ours to use, the universal power, and the idea or the story of powerlessness is just that. It's just a story. So the tricky thing here is that for each of us, when we find ourselves identifying as a victim or as victimized, some part of us needs to know and remember that's a story. It's probably serving a purpose for us in the moment, but it's a story. And the quicker we recognize it as a story, the more powerful our practice will be. Because the practice of shifting the story or the interpretation or looking for the gift brings about a result that leads us into a new story or, thank you, a new belief or new power. And that is valuable. In my book, A Darkness Filled with Light, which I will now shamelessly plug because it's in the bookstore, I tell a story of a man from my congregation in Southern California some years ago who was deliberately hit by a car. He and his wife were on their way to a dance performance. They were all dressed up. They made a wrong turn. He went into a parking lot that had one of those dividers, you know, so he had to go around the divider to get out. And he didn't realize there was somebody else coming, so when he turned around to go out, all of a sudden there was this car full of young men yelling and screaming and honking at him, and they roared up on him so that he pulled over so far to the left to let them around him that he actually left tire marks on the curb on this divider. And so they roared off, and then they blocked the exit. So their car was at the exit, so he couldn't get out. And these guys started to get out of the car. Now, this guy was a pretty big guy. And he said, you know, Reverend Mary, where I grew up, people didn't have guns. They used their fists. And what I learned was, if you had more than one person coming at you, what you do is run at them so that you could at least take the first guy down first, and that might scare everybody off. And he said, so I without thinking, here he is in his suit and tie, he ran at these guys, and they got in the car and drove off. So he turned around to walk back, and he said, now all my attention is on my bride, because that's how I think of her. I'm walking back to the car. Is she okay? Is she afraid? He said, I didn't even hear it coming. They turned around. They came down the aisle, down the driveway, and they hit him. He went up through the air and hit his head on the pavement 50 feet away. And they sped off. And his wife is on the ground screaming for help. He's bleeding. And when the police showed up, she kept saying to him, he doesn't remember this, but she told him this, don't leave me, don't leave me. The policeman later said, when he was testifying, you know, I've seen a lot of these things, and when I saw him and that blood everywhere, I thought this one's not going to make it. But he did make it. And he was so angry afterwards that he decided he was going to go out and buy a gun. And a friend of his went with him. And he went to a place to buy a gun. He said, now, my friend was really wise. When we got to the place, he made me explain to the man behind the counter that the reason I wanted to buy a gun, was to shoot human beings. And I thought, okay, maybe this isn't the time yet to do this. And so we left, and we went to a restaurant, and the waitress there was a friend of ours, and she was telling us a story about how her boyfriend had been mugged. And I got really angry again. And I was saying, boy, you know, nothing like that's going to happen to me again. It's going to be blam, blam, and ask questions later. And my friend said to me, so, is it time to go back and get that gun now? And I realized that that was not the right decision for me. So he said later, sometime later, there was a hearing. They caught the guys, and the defendant, the driver, was having a hearing. And he was going to the hearing. And this was going to be a sentencing hearing. And so he said, I went to the courthouse, I went up in the elevator doors opened on the 4th floor, or whatever floor it was, and I looked out into a corridor that was absolutely deserted. There was not a soul there except the defendant, sitting on a bench, and me. He said, Reverend Mary, if I'd wanted to, I could have killed him. And he said, I thought to myself, okay, Spirit, what am I supposed to do here? So I went over and I sat down next to him, and we started to talk. And I said, do we have to wait here? And he said, you know, the attorneys and the judge aren't here, so we just have to wait. He said they kept us waiting for 4 hours. So they started talking to each other, and he said, you know, eventually I said to him, well, you know, we have sure gone through a lot together to learn whatever it is we each need to learn. And he said, boy, that shocked him. He wasn't expecting to hear that from me. And he said to me, you know, I'm not a religious person. I'm not going to pretend that I am, but I've had a lot of time in my cell to read, and they gave me a Bible, so I've been reading the Bible, and it says in there that if you steal something from a man, you can restore him by giving it back to him. And if you tell a lie about him, you can restore him by telling the truth. But if you kill someone, you can't restore him. And I nearly took your life. And for whatever it's worth, I'm really sorry. I was really stupid. I thought it was great to get tanked up with my friends and go, you know, powering around. And I just want you to know I'm really sorry. And they ended up down the coffee shop talking. The guy's girlfriend came and joined them and some other of this guy's friends. And they were even joking about how, boy, we might make a lot of money going on Oprah together someday over all this. And then just before they got called upstairs, the young man said to him, you know, I'm really afraid they're going to send me to prison, because he'd been in jail. I'm really afraid they're going to send me to prison. I hear that people, if they've ever been to prison, they always go back. And my friend said to him, you know, I just want you to know, I see good in you. I don't see that for you, for whatever it's worth. And so they went upstairs. My friend held the door open for everybody to go in, including the defendant, and they hugged each other. Well, actually, the defendant said, I don't know if I have the courage to ask you this, but would you shake my hand? And he did. And then he gave him a hug, and they went in. And he told his attorney, my friend told his attorney, I don't think I'm going to stay now for the sentencing. And she said, well, you know, the judge hasn't decided what the sentencing is going to be yet. You might want to stay. He said, no, that's up to him. I don't need to know. So as he got up to leave, the judge said to him, sir, I need to ask you a few questions. So he said, you know, what has been your experience? And he said I had to tell him about my medical bills and how I was, you know, picking glass out of my neck still, and how I was in pain and all of that. And then I went to leave, and he said, you know, sir, before you go, would you like to have input into the sentencing? Like, what type of retribution would you like to see here? He said he actually used that word, retribution. And I said, Your Honor, I don't want to have anything to do with retribution. That's your job, not mine. And he said, okay. And so he said, rather than going down the center aisle, I just walked around behind the defendant and put my hand on him before I went out. So the sentence was for the young man to go back to jail for a period of time. And he said, my attorney and my brother both thought that this was not right, that it was too light a sentence. But I know it was just right. It was just right. He said, Reverend Mary, forgiveness is so powerful. It's so powerful. It's not the thing that we're really going for. What we're really going for is love, but forgiveness is the bridge that gets us there. Only by being willing to see something different than what was provided right in front of him was he able to have that breakthrough. In that moment, this universal power that was who he was, allowed him to actually see that in a man who had tried to kill him. Now that's power. And that is who we are. So, the truth is that all I am and all I do is God, no exceptions. So, the truth of what we want to remember this morning, our spiritual practice, or the spiritual principle first, is God is all there is, no exceptions. No exceptions. Ooh, that stretches us so much. We have a lot of judgments about appearances, don't we? No exceptions. Stretch around that one. And so our spiritual practice for this week is, everywhere I look, I see the face of God. Say that with me. Everywhere I look, I see the face of God. And for our inner work this morning, we have a song, actually, for the inner work. So what I want to do first is, the inner work, usually we close our eyes, right? But the inner and the outer now are merging. So I want you to stand up for a moment and look around. And we're going to sing this song as our inner work this morning. So here are the lyrics. We are holy, holy, holy. We are holy, holy, holy. We are whole. Look around. You are holy, holy, holy. You are holy, holy, holy. You are holy, holy, holy. You are whole. Now, hands over your heart. I am holy, holy, holy. I am holy, holy, holy. I am holy, holy, holy. I am whole. Do the last one more time. I am holy, holy, holy. I am holy, holy, holy. I am holy, holy, holy. I am whole. And so it is. You may be seated to be taken away by the way, CDs of Andoni's are available, yes? Over here at the table this morning. So if you want to take the infusion of this with you, get my book and his CD. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.